talking about Quartet 89.
Yeah.
Don, do you remember who called you to...
I'm pretty sure it was Joel.
I'm pretty sure it was Joel. So, but the concert we were doing was a concert for new music concerts. And we all played solo pieces and duets and trios. And Don and I played one jazz duo, one of your pieces for Scott LaFaro. Joel played, I can't remember what he played with Wolfgang, but we also played a trio. So Don, you wrote specifically for the people that were playing because you knew who was playing, because you wrote for the two classical guys and then for himself as the featured soloist.
Well, yeah, I did actually.
Yeah. It was like,
don't give me that book. I'll just play Pussycat.
And then he had me as the crossover bass player between the classical guys and the jazz. Actually, I had hair at the time.
Yeah, we do look different, actually.
No, you look exactly the same.
Yeah, except older.
Yeah, well, okay, Don wrote all this beautiful stuff, E minor to A7 and 3/4, and then he gives me C sharp to F sharp in 5/4. Anyway, that was then. This is now. Joel was just going through all these old cassettes that he had, and he'd heard the cassette again, and he listened to it, and he said, "Wow, this sounds like a pretty good piece. We should revive it." Because we've been talking, Joel and I had been talking about recording the Nightingale, and we're thinking about what could we do to fill out the program.
It sounds fantastic, you know. I've listened to it many times, and it just sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Well, I think also because of the fact that Joel was playing the first part. In the concert, Wolfgang played the first part.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know who played what.
I think it was that Wolfgang. It was Wolfgang Güttler, the principal of the Vienna Philharmonic. The new versions, Joel's playing the first part. Young Travis Harrison's playing the second part. I pity that guy, huh?
Well,
What's that joke? Who's Travis Harrison?
None of the parts are particularly easy, but some of them are hard.
Well, Joe Phillips ended up playing the third part, the part that I played back in the day.
In fourths, yeah.
In fourths. Well, he goes back and forth between. He hasn't completely switched over to fifths yet.
Oh, that's good.
And then I got to be Don Thompson. Not only did I get to be Don Thompson, but I got to be Don Thompson while Don Thompson was sitting beside me listening to me play his part, which was, you know, a challenge. Who are you writing there, man? That's the craziest shit ever.
I only write stuff that I can play myself.
So what about the rest of the record then? Like you found Nightingale, which is the piece.
Joel told that story in Rochester about when we were rehearsing, and that was the other concert when he tried out my bass. That was the concert where we were rehearsing and we took a break. I don't know, for dinner or what, or some kind of a break, and he just wrapped himself up in a bass bag and went to sleep underneath the piano.
He wrote a bass quartet some years ago that's great. It's for two classical players and two jazz guys. And we were preparing a performance of that, and there was a break between the rehearsal and the show, and I was having a nap underneath a grand piano, I think in a bass case. And Don didn't know I was there, but he came over to the piano and he started playing a ballad. And you know, I was sort of half asleep, half awake, and it was just like a beautiful dream. It was one of my best musical experiences, hearing him play this beautiful chord changes. I don't know what it was, but I pledged that I would someday get him to write me something like that.
We went to Rochester to do the bass convention, the ISB convention, and I think it was it was a record release too of the Brahms. I think is it the Brahms? I can't remember. We did so many records, but the Brahms that we'd done. And when we mentioned to Don, he said we were going to do. He wanted to play Nightingale on the concert. Don said, "Well, I'll come and play."
It was Joel didn't actually ask me. I just volunteered.
Yeah.
I thought, well, what the heck? And Rochester's close by.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to do it.
So
they wanted. That's why it happened.
the other thing was that what I remember of that concert was that, again, but the sound was so big, and that was a pretty big concert hall that he was in, and it filled up the hall. Going back to the record, so we had the quartet that was going to be part of this thing, and Nightingale was the whole motivation, the catalyst for the project. So we needed to fill it out, and Don said, "Oh, I'll write a couple more for you." So he wrote some of your tunes that are quite well known amongst Canadian jazz musicians. The Egberto.
Well, Egberto, yeah, maybe.
That one's dedicated to the great pianist, guitarist, Egberto Gismonti, unbelievable musician.
Yeah, literally unbelievable. Like, no matter what anybody told you about him, you wouldn't believe it when you heard it.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't.
He's a pretty astounding musician. And then you wrote, when did you write Another Time, Another Place? I
wrote that a while ago, as a matter of fact. I've actually recorded that on one of my records with Phil Dwyer. Yeah, it did take it to Keith Jarrett, then we could say that. Because Keith was he's beyond besides being, I think, the greatest jazz pianist to come along in the last 60 years. He's also a really lovely guy that I was lucky enough to get to know back in 1966 when we were both staying in the same house together.
This is in San Francisco?
Yeah.
You were playing with John Handy back then.
I was with Handy, and he was with Charles Lloyd.
Wow.
But I had a little, my room was quite a bit smaller than this, but I had a little upright piano in my room. And Keith didn't have a piano in his room, so we came up a couple of times and played the piano, and then we'd talk and listen to music and everything.
Did you play any bass with him at all?
No, I'd love to have done that, but I didn't. Not at the time, I didn't.
When Roberto sent the preview of the album, I was making dinner at the time, so I put it on the stereo in our kitchen. My partner's cellist, and she heard I think it's the introduction to Roberto. It's sort of like a jazzy rock, and you spent a lot of the pandemic going over, sort of obsessing over Bach, right? And that made it into these compositions, or am I reading into it too much?
No, not really, because I am Bach obsessed. I have been for, I don't know, since the mid-'80s, I guess, when I was working with George Shearing. Because Shearing was crazy about Bach. I was working with him in the Cafe Carlyle in New York. We were there for about 3 months. And Shearing's wife, Ellie, was singing in the chorus with the New York Phil, and they were doing a Mass in B minor. And I think they did it for every night for about a week. And so we'd be playing, and she'd come in, and then she'd be just sailing because she just finished this performance, right? And then they'd be sitting there, and they'd be singing little bits of it. George would get up, and he'd start playing the Kyrie off the beginning, and that would be the introduction to the next tune he was going to play. And so anyhow, that after the gig one night, the three of us went back to his apartment, and he put on the LP, and we listened to it. And then the next day I went out and I bought 2 copies of the LP because I didn't want to just have one in case I wore it out. And then basically I made cassettes and I listened to it pretty well every day a couple of times, and I bought the score and I read along with it and analyzed it and tried to learn it, but it's way, way beyond anything I could memorize. But sure, he could actually remember, he could play the whole first Kyrie, and then he could improvise on it. You know, he could actually use that as part of a tune.
Wow.
It's absolutely ridiculous what George could do. And so ever since then, I've been crazy about Bach. It was before that to a degree, but the master is what really got me.
We also have, for the quartet, I don't know if you know this, but it's also been done in Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, I know that.
That microphone with 180 capsules. So that sounds amazing. What's great about it is it's not like you're sitting in the concert hall listening to it. You're actually on stage with them.
Yeah, which is
the way I love to hear music.
I've never experienced it. I can only imagine what it'd be like.
Yeah.
He recorded in this room. He did that record with Conrad Blumendahl, the duet record. They recorded in here in 1981, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then after that, I went to Banff. I started with the jazz program at Banff with Dave Holman and Kenny Whelan. And Joel was in the classical program. He was teaching bass in the classical guys. And so I got to spend a bit of time with him, not very much because he was really busy, as were we. But I remember he did come to our concert when David, Kenny, and I did a trio concert, our first faculty concert. There was only 3 of us there, so we did a concert, and we did a whole lot of real free outer space free jazz, you know. And Joel was at the concert, and I don't think I remember seeing him then after the concert, but the next day I ran into him. I think maybe at breakfast or something I ran into him, and he told me how a bunch of them had sat up all night debating whether true counterpoint was possible in jazz, right?
Well.
And I said, well, so what did you decide? He says, well, we decided it probably wasn't possible. But if it was, you and Dave Holland would be the guys to do it.
So basically it was just once we set up, we hit the space bar and that was it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a pretty relaxed.
It couldn't have been any.
We had some good sandwiches and stuff, a couple of laughs here and there. You know?
No, it was a pretty easy work actually.
Yeah.
The thing that blew me away about this is that, for me, other than playing bass in the quartet, when I came in and filmed you two in that recording session, it was just like recording another jazz session. I came in 10 in the morning, set up my stuff. At 11, you pressed record. And by 4, you had an album, basically.
Yeah, well, that's, that's how they used to do it, you know. The thing is, this is like, because I've been producing, records now. They start out, everything was a vanity project before. Now people ask me to help them out to do the recordings, and they always ask me, what's the secret to getting, a great sound? I said, it's simple. Get people who know how to play, and put a microphone and don't do anything other than record them. Just leave it alone.
Don't mess with it.
Don't mess with it, because we had limited technical facilities there, let alone technical facilities on my part. But the idea was that we stuck the microphones there, and I was very lucky because it's a good sounding room. There's the other part.
It actually is, yeah.
It was a nice sounding room, so. Basically, leave it alone, record it, and whether it's classical music, whether it's jazz or R&B or whatever, that's the secret. Just get people who know how to play their instruments.
Well, that's true. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. If you get that, and if you get people who know how to play their instruments and are musically aware and prepared, it's not rocket science.
So at this point, you're probably wondering, what is the Canadian School of Double Bass anyway? I helped to create the Canadian School of Double Bass, folks, initially as an act of extreme selfishness. I studied with Joel throughout my undergraduate and master's degrees, and very quickly afterwards won a job with the Winnipeg Symphony. At the same time, Joel moved to London, England, to work as principal of bass with the London Symphony Orchestra for a year, as he took a sabbatical from his work at the National Arts Center. And both of our schedules became such that we didn't really have a lot of time to stay in touch. And so while I had just won this incredible first job, I still really wanted to keep this desire fed to learn more about how to play the bass and, figure out exactly how Joel accomplishes this beautiful, effortless, and vocal style. I applied for some government grants from the various arts council granting bodies in Canada, and they provided me with the funds to go spend most of the summer studying with Joel even more and filming his technical exercises and refining them so that we could present them in a way that was super clear to anyone. He had created these exercises, over decades of teaching at the Glenn Gould School in Toronto, at McGill, at University of Ottawa, at Orford, but he had never really formally put them into a package that he could sell. But this was the first time that we had it all assembled into one quite beautiful package, actually. At the time, it was 2013, and I did a lot of thinking about the different technology available that we could leverage to put this into a accessible package that was different from the other technique books out there. So while we're used to seeing just exercise with a brief explanation about how it should be performed and the notated music, there can be a lot of misunderstandings, and there's a lot of room for misunderstanding with that kind of technique book and that kind of exercise. And so I took a camera along and a couple microphones and recorded Joel in great detail doing all of his technical exercises, so that when we embedded these videos next to his technique book, notated exercises, you could see and you could hear without a doubt exactly what it should look like and how it should sound. This novelty led to an incredibly successful first edition of the Canadian School of Double Bass. Fast forward to 2020, and we found ourselves questioning how we could use the realities presented by the pandemic to take the technique books a step further and create more of an ecosystem of sorts that connected all the various projects we had been working on. The different performance videos, for instance, of Joel's Bach 6 Suite, sheet music editions, technique books, and we want to present them as relatable, an interwoven body of works and materials that our bassist colleagues can find useful. We decided to ditch the iBooks platform and create something more accessible to anyone. And in the process, we created this new PDF version of the Canadian School of Double Bass Daily Studies book, which is called Book 1, and as well a Book 2, which is Intervals, Chords, Arpeggios, and Scales. It's important to us that everything we release and everything we create is accessible to both tuning systems as well. It's a common misconception that Joel's technique only works in fifths tuning. That's sort of tuned like a cello but an octave lower. While playing in fifths certainly created some thought-provoking challenges that led to a number of the technical solutions that we have for musical ideas and musical issues, this technique only makes fourths tuning more easy and approachable, especially for people with small hands. And without exception, everything we do and show there is complementary to bass playing, regardless of how the instrument is tuned. Our latest sheet music editions, Bottesini's Elegy in D, Korngold's Garden Scene, Schumann's Adagio and Allegro, link up wonderfully. It uses the same fingering system as the technique books, both Book 1, which is Daily Studies, and Book 2, the Intervals, Chords, Arpeggios, and Scales. And so when you get this, it's really a related ecosystem that makes sense. The next piece in this video is a great example. The Nightingale sang Berkeley Square was an enormous hit at, I believe, the 2013 ISB convention. Joel and Don Thompson have revisited the piece, created piano parts for both jazz and classical pianists, and we've released them all on Joel's website store so that you can hear the piece and say, dang, I want to do that. I want to play that piece. And now you can easily do it. We've just released this video that you're going to watch next, and it's going to be included on Joel's latest album, which is the music of Don Thompson. And regardless of whether you tune in fourths or fifths, or have a pianist that can improvise over a jazz chart, or just read classical music, the piece is available for you. That's what the Canadian School of Double Bass is, and we hope that you enjoy it.